My name is Chu Xian. I live in Panshan Town, a corner of the great Shenlong Empire. The empire is vast, stretching over 10 million miles, and the Chu family is one of its four great pillars. My branch in Panshan is just a small part of that massive bloodline. But here, we are the undisputed law. I was walking outside a local restaurant, clutching a couple of wild rabbits I'd caught, when a group of servants blocked my path. At their center stood a fat, arrogant young master. Well, look who it is, a greasy voice mocked. Isn't this our great genius, Chu Xian? It was Chu Jiang. He was the son of the outer court manager. Because of his father's position, he spent his days bullying the weak and acting like he owned the streets. 3 years ago, I caught him trying to kidnap a girl and gave him a beating he'd never forget. He had hated me ever since. Chu Jiang, what do you want? I asked, my brow furrowing. What do I want? He laughed, looking at my tattered clothes. I just wanted to see how far our great genius has fallen. Imagine, reduced to hunting rabbits just to stay alive. Let me see those. He snatched a rabbit from my hand, sniffed it, and made a face of pure disgust. Stinks, he spat, tossing the carcass into the dirt. Chu Jiang. My eyes turned red. I slammed my fist shut, my heart pounding with rage. He didn't flinch. Instead, he looked at me with pure mockery. What? You want to hit me? You're just a loser at the third stage of the pre-heaven realm. You don't even have a martial soul anymore. What can you possibly do to me? I flinched. The words hit harder than any punch. He was right. I was a cripple. In this world, martial arts are everything. We rank them through 6 major realms: pre-heaven, chi-blood, true spirit, god-wu, mountain-moving, and half-god. Each realm has 9 levels. When a cultivator reaches the 6th level of the pre-heaven realm, they awaken their martial soul, the power of their bloodline. Martial souls come in 2 types. Weapon souls, like sabers or swords, give you perfect mastery over a blade and massive destructive power. Beast souls, like tigers or bears, let you inherit the strength of a monster, turning you into a half-human warrior. They are ranked from 1 to 9, with 9 being the stuff of legends. In a place like Panshan, a grade 5 soul makes you a superstar. 3 years ago, at just 13 years old, I reached the 6th level and awakened a grade 7 white jade sword soul. I was a once-in-a-century genius. Even the main family in the capital sent gifts. But then, tragedy struck. My father, Chu Tang, the pillar of our family, was ambushed by a powerful enemy. He was left on the brink of death. No medicine could save him. There was only one ancient legend that offered hope. If a person's life force was failing, you could merge a compatible martial soul into their body to preserve their spark. If they survived for 3 years, they might wake up. Without a second thought, I destroyed my own future. I crippled my cultivation and fused my grade 7 soul into my father's body. I knew the enemy might come back to finish the job, so I told everyone he was dead. I buried him in a coffin on a lonely mountain and built a small hut nearby, claiming I was staying there to mourn. The moment the world found out I had lost my martial soul, everything changed. The family elders used every excuse to steal my father's property. They called me a curse and a failure. They cut off my allowance and left me with nothing but a broken sword my father had left behind. I looked at the rabbit in the dirt and took a deep breath. It didn't matter. As long as my father came back, it was all worth it. I ignored Chu Jiang's insults and picked up my rabbit. I turned to the restaurant owner. Manager Lee, please, just take the rabbits. I need the money, and I have to get back. Chu Jiang slammed his hand on a table. Manager Lee, think carefully. This kid spends all his time living next to a grave. If you take those rabbits, your food will smell like death. I promise you, if you buy from him, no one will ever eat here again. The manager looked at me with pity and gave a helpless bow. I'm sorry, little brother. I can't take them. My chest felt tight with a silent fury. I grabbed my rabbits and turned away. Behind me, the sound of Chu Jiang's laughter followed me down the street. Look at him run. What a coward. The genius of Panshan Town is nothing but a dog now. I didn't stop. I walked all the way back to my small grass hut next to my father's grave. I sat down cross-legged and tried to meditate, hoping to feel the energy of the world. But my meridians felt like they were clogged with mud. I couldn't pull in a single spark of energy. I sighed. Another failure. For 3 years, my cultivation had been sliding backward. Ironically, today was the day of the Chu family's annual grand exam, the day young disciples awaken their martial souls. 3 years ago today, I was the star of the show. Today, I was a ghost living in the woods, a joke for people to tell over drinks. Suddenly, the sky turned black. A massive bolt of lightning tore through the clouds, illuminating the night like it was midday. The ground shook with a deafening roar. I jumped to my feet, my eyes wide. A thick pillar of lightning had just struck my father's grave. The earth cracked. A sickening sound of splintering would echoed through the air as the grave split open. But instead of the smell of death, a faint, golden light began to pulse from the depths of the tomb. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. It had been exactly 3 years to the day. "Father," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You're coming back." Excitement flashed through my eyes. I didn't care that the ground was still trembling beneath my feet. I lunged forward and leaped straight into the open grave. The air inside the tomb was ice cold. My heart sank. The casket was already open, and my father's body, Chu Tang, was gone. It had vanished without a trace. The only thing left in the empty wooden box was a jade sword, pulsing with a faint, golden light. I was stunned. Where was he? This wasn't the reunion I had imagined. I reached down and grabbed the golden jade sword, desperate to find some clue, some hint of what had happened. But the energy inside was locked tight. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the tomb. The jade sword shattered into a million golden fragments. Before I could blink, those fragments coalesced into a tiny, golden dragon shadow and shot straight into my forehead. My whole body jerked. A massive roar thundered inside my brain, and a strange vision exploded before my eyes. I saw the primordial era. High above mountain peaks that pierced the clouds, a massive figure thousands of feet long soared through the mist. It let out a long, piercing cry that made every beast on earth bow in fear. It had the antlers of a deer, the head of a camel, the eyes of a rabbit, and the body of a snake. Its scales shimmered like a fish, its claws were sharp like an eagle's, and its ears were like those of an ox. With one swipe of its claw, mountains crumbled. With one sweep of its tail, the oceans erupted in tsunamis. The terrifying power of a true dragon ruling over all living things flooded my mind. Along with it came a fragmented cultivation technique. My chest heaved with excitement. The 9 Transformations Divine Dragon Art. It's actually the 9 Transformations Divine Dragon Art. As the name suggested, this technique used a dragon soul as its core. It allowed the physical body and the martial soul to undergo 9 separate metamorphoses. At the final stage, one could actually transform into a divine dragon, possessing power that rivaled the gods. Most importantly, practicing this would allow me to awaken a brand new dragon blood martial soul. I couldn't believe it. My father had left me a way to regain my power. Even though it was just a fragment, only covering the first 3 realms of chi blood, true spirit, and innate, it was enough. As long as I had a martial soul again, I could start over. 3 years of humiliation ended today. From this moment on, I would pay them back in full. I let out a long, shaky breath. My eyes burned with a new fire. I couldn't wait another second. I sat down, closed my eyes, and began to circulate the 9 Transformations Divine Dragon Art. Boom. A surge of pure energy, nearly 100 times stronger than anything I'd felt before, erupted like a volcano inside me. It turned into currents of scalding white air that crashed through my meridians. The energy gathered at my heart, forming a pale, golden pool of power. It was too much. The violent energy was like a tidal wave hitting a dam. My meridians couldn't take the pressure. One by one, they snapped. But the golden energy from the dragon art had incredible healing properties. As soon as a meridian tore, the golden light fused into the tissue, knitting it back together. Each time they healed, they became tougher and more resilient. Snap, heal, snap, heal. The pain was agonizing. It felt like my entire body was being shredded and stitched back together over and over again. I nearly blacked out. Black, tainted blood leaked from my nose and mouth. I gritted my teeth, letting out a low, guttural growl. I had to stay conscious. If I passed out now, everything would be for nothing. If I hadn't spent the last 3 years being mocked and looked down upon, I wouldn't have had the mental toughness to survive this. But the resentment boiling in my heart kept me awake. As the waves of energy settled, even my internal organs began to glow with a faint gold. They were becoming stronger, harder, more powerful. The bottleneck that had held me back for 3 years finally shattered. Innate fourth layer. Innate fifth layer. Innate sixth layer. In a single hour, I leaped across levels that took normal people years to climb. I broke through 3 realms in one sitting. Eventually, the energy in the air around me was sucked dry. The circulation slowed down, and the golden pool at my heart condensed into a strange, glowing mark. This technique was incredible. My cultivation was back at the 6th layer, but because of the violent tempering my body had just endured, my foundation was rock solid. My raw physical strength was likely on par with someone at the 8th or 9th layer. I felt power surging through every muscle. I let out a sharp cry and jumped. I cleared 15 feet in a single bound, landing perfectly on a thick tree branch. Today was the Chu family's awakening ceremony. I needed to use the power of the martial soul stone to fully awaken my new soul. 3 years ago, I was the star of that ceremony. Today, I was going to use that same stage to tell everyone that Chu Xian was back. I leaped from the tree and sprinted toward the family martial arts arena. The streets near the Chu estate were mostly empty since everyone was at the ceremony. I ran at full speed, feeling the wind against my face. But as I rounded a corner, a group of figures stepped out to block my path. Chu Xian, I knew it was you. A voice sneered. I could smell that pathetic stench from a mile away. I didn't think a loser like you would actually have the nerve to show up here. Chu Zhang's arrogant, fat face loomed in front of me again. His servants gathered around him, laughing and holding their noses as if I were garbage. You're not actually here for the ceremony, are you? Chu Zhang mocked. Oh wait, I forgot. Our genius had his soul destroyed. And your cultivation is only at the 3rd layer. You need to be at least at the 6th layer just to trigger the stone. You're just a waste of space. I stared at him, my expression calm, though my brow twitched. What do you want, Chu Jiang? I just wanted to tell you that I've awakened a 3rd-grade beast soul, the Earthback Boar. I'm a warrior with a bright future now. My hands are a bit itchy, and you showed up at the perfect time. Stay still, and let me test my palm technique on you. He swung a meaty hand toward my face. The strike carried thousands of pounds of force. In his mind, even though he was almost 20 and only at the 6th layer, dealing with a 3rd layer weakling like me would be easy. But I wasn't that weakling anymore. I shifted my weight slightly, dodging the blow with ease. I frowned. If this were 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to fight back. But now, I didn't want to waste my time on a clown like him. I had a ceremony to get to. You dare to dodge? Chu Zhang's face twisted. He roared, fully releasing the pressure of his 3rd-grade soul. A heavy, suffocating force slammed toward me, trying to pin me down. A flash of killing intent crossed my mind. This guy just didn't know when to stop. Chu Zhang was practically begging for death. He clenched his fist, ready to throw a punch, but a long sword suddenly flashed between us, cutting through the air. An elder carrying a sword stepped forward from the shadows. It was Chu Tianfeng, the Grand Elder of the Disciplinary Hall. In the Chu family, the Disciplinary Hall operated independently, holding the power of life and death. They didn't meddle in internal politics, but their authority was absolute. Family disciples are strictly forbidden from fighting, Chu Tianfeng said, his eyes piercing. Chu Jiang, do you intend to violate the family laws? Chu Jiang didn't back down easily. Grand Elder, we were just sparring. There's no need to frame me for a crime. Chu Tianfeng let out a cold snort. Don't think that just because your father is a manager, I can't touch you. Today is the awakening ceremony. Get back to where you belong. He sheathed his sword and walked away. As the head of the disciplinary hall, he had a seat reserved at the ceremony and couldn't waste time here. Chu Jiang watched him leave, then turned back to me with a sneer. You got lucky, kid, Chu Jiang hissed. I'll let you go this time. Oh, is that so? I let out a sharp, cold laugh. For the Grand Elder's sake, I won't kill you today. You trash. What did you say? Chu Jiang's temper exploded. He didn't care about the rules anymore. He lunged at me, pouring every ounce of his 6th layer cultivation into a single strike. With his earthback boar soul active, his palm carried over 7,000 pounds of force. Master Chu Jiang is amazing, his servants cheered from the sidelines. That waste is looking for death. Where does he get the nerve to provoke our master? The strike looked devastating to the onlookers, but to me, it was slow. I simply reached out my right hand. Without any flashy movements, I grabbed Chu Jiang's wrist midair. A sickening crack echoed through the clearing. I snapped his arm like a dry twig. Chu Jiang screamed, his 7,000 pounds of force collapsing instantly as he stumbled back. I didn't give him a second to breathe. I stepped forward and drove my palm straight into his dantian. My internal energy, fueled by the 9-turn divine dragon technique, surged like a tidal wave, shattering his cultivation core. Faint, golden dragon shadows swirled around my body, making me feel like a god among men. Chu Jiang's 200-pound body flew through the air like a discarded meatball. He crashed into a row of wooden barrels, splinters flying everywhere, and curled into a ball, wailing in agony. Master, are you okay? His servants were frozen in shock. They eventually scrambled over to help him, their faces pale with terror. None of them dared to look me in the eye, let alone try to retaliate. Chu Xian, you destroyed my cultivation. I'll kill you. Chu Jiang managed to wheeze out as his servants propped him up. He tried to act tough, but when he met my cold gaze and remembered the power I had just displayed, his voice died in his throat. He wasn't stupid. He realized that the genius who had ruled over his peers 3 years ago was back. I stood with my hands behind my back and walked toward him, one slow step at a time. With every step, my killing intent grew heavier, pressing down on his chest like a mountain. You couldn't even handle one move, I said, looking down at him. Now, you're even worse than a waste like me. Chu Jiang's face turned a deep, angry purple, but he couldn't find the words to respond. One more word, and I'll kill you, I said flatly. He lowered his head, though I could see the poisonous resentment flickering in his eyes. He wanted revenge. I didn't care. If he wanted to plot against me, I would simply crush him again. In the world of martial arts, the strong rule. That was my path now. I ignored him and headed toward the martial arts arena. As I approached, I could already hear the announcer calling out names. Chuhi, awakened a 2nd-grade weapon soul, Ironwood Spear. Chu Dong, awakened a 3rd-grade beast soul, Tusked Boar. Every time a flash of light erupted from the stage, it meant another disciple had awakened their soul. The ceremony had already started. I frowned and pushed my way through the dense crowd, blending in with the other youths waiting for their turn. Wait, isn't that Chu Xian? Why is that trash here? I heard he was so poor he had to hunt rabbits to survive. If I were him, I'd just find a hole to die in. The people around me pulled away as if I were a leper. I stood alone in the middle of the crowd, a strange sense of isolation washing over me. Chu Xian, I even went to the graveyard to look for you. I didn't think you'd actually show up. A beautiful girl with pale skin and delicate features walked toward me. It was Zhao Shuanger, my childhood friend, and the girl I was betrothed to. Shuanger, you're here? I felt a surge of genuine emotion and reached out to take her hand. She flinched and pulled back, her brow furrowing as she looked at my tattered clothes. Enough. Don't come any closer. I can smell the filth on you from miles away. My hand froze in midair. The smile slid off my face as I looked at her cold expression. You never used to say I was dirty, I said quietly. Enough, she snapped. Do you think you're still the Chu Xian of the past? You're just a soulless peasant who spends his days digging in the dirt. I came here to tell you one thing. Stop dreaming about marrying me. You aren't worthy. Her words were like jagged glass, cutting deep. I felt my heart grow cold. I hadn't necessarily loved her, but I had viewed her as a sister. Seeing her turn out to be just as shallow as the rest hurt more than I expected. Don't worry, she whispered as she leaned in, passing by me like a distant goddess. I'll publicly break the engagement soon. My family's reputation is at stake. Actually, you and that contract are the final obstacles to my breakthrough. When I reach the true spirit realm, I'll kill you with my own hands to perfect my fusion. Stay alive until then. That's the only value a waste like you has left. Was I a stepping stone for her breakthrough, or just nutrients to be consumed? My heart went cold, but my eyes burned with an uncontrollable rage. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. Since Lady Schwanger has graced the Chu family with her presence, why didn't the servants announce it? I would have prepared a proper welcome. A young man dressed in white walked over, flanked by a crowd of followers. He looked at Zhao Schwanger with heat in his eyes. This was Chu Chun, the son of the current acting clan leader. Though he hadn't awakened his martial soul yet, he was already at the 9th level of the body refining realm. In the eyes of the clan, he was the #1 genius. Brother Chu Chun, it was just a sudden thought. I wanted to see how things were going, Zhao Schwanger replied. Her face transformed instantly, offering him a sweet, radiant smile. She treated me like I was invisible. After chatting and laughing with Chu Chun for a moment, she walked elegantly toward the spectator stands. Chu Xian is an absolute disgrace, someone whispered nearby. Watching his own fiancée flirt with another man and not doing a thing. He deserves it for having no self-awareness. A toad lusting after swan meat, another chimed in. The surrounding Chu disciples laughed and jeered, enjoying my humiliation. Even the clan elders on the high stands noticed the commotion. That girl who just left, isn't she Chu Xian's fiancée? Zhao Schwanger from the Zhao family. Former fiancée, you mean? Another elder sneered. She's a genius scouted by the elders of the Cold Moon sect. She's like a goddess. A cripple like Chu Xian doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as her. True, if his father, Chu Tang, were still alive, it might be different. But now, enough. Why bring up a dead man? The elders went silent when they noticed Chu Changsheng, who was sitting in the center, turn grim. The actual head of the Chu family was Chu Changhe, but since he was in secluded cultivation, his brother Chu Changsheng was acting as the head and presiding over the awakening ceremony. Everyone knew the truth. Chu Changhe had only secured his position because Chu Tang had died and I, his son, had become a waste. They had conspired with other branch elders to swallow the main family's assets whole. Enough. These are just trifles among the younger generation, Chu Changsheng said, waving a hand to dismiss the chatter. We have honored guests here. Let the ceremony continue. Beside him sat a middle-aged man, a guest of high status. He looked at me thoughtfully. Is that the boy who awakened a 7th-grade sword soul years ago? I forced myself to calm down. I suppressed the fire in my chest. Every ounce of humiliation I suffered today would be repaid in full during this ceremony. As the proceedings continued, Chu Chun decided he wasn't done with me. He walked over, surrounded by his sycophants, and stopped right in front of me. Chu Xian, he said coldly. Since we share the same family name, I'll give you a piece of advice. Lady Schwanger is a celestial being. You are the dirt beneath her feet. If you have any dignity left, go to her house and break the engagement yourself. Stop embarrassing the Chu family. It was a blatant insult. My face darkened. Chu Chun, what happens between me and Zhao Schwanger is none of your business. You really don't know when to quit, do you? He laughed. Watch closely. I'm about to awaken my soul. I'll show you that we live in 2 different worlds. Only a strong man like me is worthy of pursuing someone like Schwanger. He turned away with a look of utter disdain and walked toward the pitch-black awakening stone in the center of the plaza. He pressed his palm firmly against it. A few breaths later, a piercing wolf's howl echoed through the air. A violent red light erupted from Chu Chen's body. On the surface of the stone, the image of a massive, blood-colored wolf appeared. A wolf's howl? Look at that form, the crowd gasped. Chu Chun awakened a 5th-grade beast soul, the blazing fire wolf. At 18, he was already at the 9th level of body refining, and now he had a 5th-grade soul. He truly was a genius. Even the guest on the high stand nodded in approval. Chu Changsheng beamed with pride. He knew that as long as his son excelled, their branch of the family would eventually be recognized as the true main line. Chu Chen stepped down from the stone, basking in the flattery of the other disciples. He walked past me and sneered. Do you see it now? That is the gap between us. Just a 5th-grade soul. I said quietly. My eyes went cold. In that case, I don't need to show you any mercy. I stepped forward, walking straight toward the awakening stone. What is that kid doing? Chu Chen's smile faltered. Hasn't Chu Xian already awakened a soul before? And didn't it shatter? The elders whispered. Does he think he can do it twice? What a joke. His cultivation dropped to the 3rd level. He won't even be able to trigger the stone, Chu Changxing added with a sneer. The awakening stone was still glowing with the residual red light and pressure from Chu Chen's soul. To touch it now was dangerous. Unless I could awaken a soul higher than 5th grade, I wouldn't even be able to make the stone flicker. I ignored the mockery. I placed my hand firmly on the cold surface of the stone and closed my eyes. Inside, I began to circulate the 9 transformations divine dragon script. The world around me went quiet. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth began to fluctuate violently. It surged toward me like massive waves, pouring into my body and gathering at my palm. The awakening stone began to tremble. Suddenly, a blinding red light exploded from the center, far brighter than anything Chu Chun had produced. It shrouded the entire stone, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. For a split second, a golden dragon shadow seemed to soar through the light, letting out a roar that shook the very ground. Inside my body, a massive python appeared. It had a pale gold horn on its head and a mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs. It was twice the size of any normal python soul. Power flooded through my veins. This was the first transformation of the 9 transformations divine dragon script, the dragon-blooded flame python. In that single moment, my body and my soul had both reached a total, violent rebirth. My entire body felt like one cohesive machine. Under the power of my soul, my blood began to boil. This surge of energy was so intense that I felt like I could shatter the awakening stone with a single punch. The sleeping genius had finally woken up. How is this possible? Chu Chen's face went pale. He actually reawakened his soul? The light was blinding. On the high platform, even the middle-aged man from the main family stood up in shock. His eyes were wide. Chu Changxing's expression turned dark. He glanced at the man beside him, a flicker of murderous intent crossing his eyes. He knew that if I truly awakened a high-grade soul, his branch of the family would be in deep trouble. I was the one with the true mainline blood, after all. But as the red light faded, a totem appeared on the stone. The martial arts field erupted in laughter. A 1st-grade soul? And it's a fire python. That thing is useless. It probably couldn't even kill a wild rabbit. Chu Jiang, the fat bully who had been carried over by servants, laughed so hard he nearly passed out. To them, I was still a loser. They didn't notice the truth. As my soul awakened, the residual wolf howl and red light from Chu Chen's soul were completely wiped away. All that remained on the stone were red marks that looked like dragon scales. I remained calm. Still a waste, Chu Chun whispered, letting out a long breath of relief. He signaled to one of his lackeys. The crony stepped forward, shouting at me. All right, Chu Chun, you've got your 1st-grade trash soul. Now get lost. Go to the Zhao family and cancel the engagement like a good little dog. Or do you want to feel the power of my 3rd-grade tusk boar soul? No, that's not right. A voice cut through the mockery. It was the middle-aged man from the capital, Chu Xingyao. He was staring at the stone, his face twisted in disbelief. Manager Chu, what's wrong? Chu Changxing asked quickly. Chu Xingyao was a big deal. He had been sent by the clan head to judge the potential of our branch. His word determined whether our local leader kept his position. That fire python is wrong. Chu Xingyao muttered, his voice trembling. I've seen many fire python totems at the main house. But this one, it's 3 times the normal size. And it has a horn on its head. He took a sharp breath. This is a legendary mutated soul. The field went silent. It felt like a lightning bolt had struck the ground. A mutated soul? The odds of that happening were 1 in a million. They usually appeared in low-grade souls, but they held a terrifying secret. They had infinite potential. Unlike normal souls, a mutated soul could evolve. A 1st grade could become a 2nd, then a 3rd. Eventually, it could even become a 9th-grade sovereign soul. 10 years ago, 2 massive sects had gone to war over a boy with a 5th-grade mutated soul. One sect offered 3 6th-grade geniuses and 1 7th-grade genius just to trade for him. They were refused. That was how valuable a mutated soul was. Chu Xingyao sighed, his excitement cooling slightly. A shame the starting quality is so low. Evolution is risky. He might only reach the 5th grade in his lifetime. If I had started at the 5th grade, he would have taken me to the capital immediately. But a 1st-grade mutation wasn't enough to impress the main house yet. History had never seen a first-grade soul successfully reach the ninth grade. But I knew something he didn't. I had the 9 transformations divine dragon script. As long as I had the technique, I could reach the ninth grade perfectly. That was my true source of confidence. I turned my head and looked coldly at Chu-chan. Chu-chan, I barked. Didn't you say we live in 2 different worlds now? Didn't you say the gap between us was like the clouds and the mud? I stepped toward him, my voice echoing across the field. Tell me then, who is the cloud? Who is the mud? And who is the real waste? My words hit him like a physical slap. Everyone knew the difference between a core disciple and a common one. A mutated soul changed everything. Impossible, Chu-chan screamed, his face twisting with jealousy. He's lying. You're just a first-grade loser. How can you be better than me? Chu Changxing's face was like cold iron. He knew if I made it to the main house, I would seek revenge. He couldn't let me leave this town alive. Chu Xian, Chu-chan roared, losing all composure. Don't think a lucky mutation changes anything. I am the #1 genius of the Chu family. I am the heir. If you have the guts, fight me. I'll show you that you're still just trash. I looked at his pathetic, desperate face and dropped into a fighting stance. Still haven't given up? I asked. Fine. Let's see how much of a genius you really are. You have a mutated soul, but you have no resources. Chu-chan hissed, lunging forward. Your dead father isn't in charge anymore. Today, I'll show you who the real future of the Chu family is. The crowd erupted in a frenzy as we faced off. They thought I had lost my mind. I was only at the 6th stage of the prenatal realm, while Chu-chan had been at the 9th stage for a long time. It wasn't just about cultivation levels, either. His martial soul was 4 grades higher than mine. In their eyes, he could crush me like an ant. Chu Xingyao, the representative from the main family, watched us with interest. This Chu Xian is quite fascinating, he said softly. But since this is a duel, it should be kept within limits. Wouldn't you agree? The manager is absolutely right, Chu Changxing replied with a fake smile. Young people are full of fire. A little scuffle is unavoidable. His face was calm, but his eyes were ice. I saw his lips move slightly. He was using a secret voice transmission to speak directly into Chu-chan's ear. I didn't need to hear it to know what he said. Asterisk hit him hard. Find a chance to cripple him. Don't worry about the consequences. Even if you kill him, it doesn't matter. Asterisk. Chu-chan's expression shifted. A cruel, twisted grin spread across his face. Chu Xian, he hissed. I'm going to make you realize that you just got lucky. Other than that, I am 100 times better than you in every way. I am the real genius. He lunged. His fingers curved into claws, glowing with a dull red light. The air around his hands shimmered with intense heat. Even before he reached me, the wave of hot air hit my face, forcing me to dodge. I recognized the move. This was the power of his 5th-grade flame wolf soul. It turned his fingers into glowing irons. One touch would sear skin to the bone. If he reached the blood-chi realm, those hands would turn into massive phantom claws that could melt through iron armor. My flame python, on the other hand, was only 1st grade. To anyone else, a 1st-grade python soul at my level would only make my hands feel like warm water. It was barely enough to help a blacksmith work longer hours. The gap between a 1st-grade snake and a 5th-grade wolf was supposed to be an ocean. Everyone thought I was committing suicide. But they didn't know about the 9 transformations divine dragon script. Even if it looked like a python, it carried the bloodline of an ancient divine dragon. I felt the connection in my mind. The horned python inside me snapped its eyes open and let out a strange, low roar. Tiny, diamond-shaped scales flickered across my skin for a split second before vanishing. Suddenly, the heat didn't bother me. The waves of fire coming off Chu-chan felt like a warm breeze. I felt comfortable. I felt strong. So, my soul lets me ignore high temperatures, I thought. Let's see how much I can take. I kept my face neutral, hiding my surprise. As Chu-chan lunged again, I didn't dodge. I reached out and grabbed his wrist. You're looking for death, Chu-chan screamed. He was shocked I dared to counterattack, but his shock turned to joy. He expected my hand to burn to a crisp the moment I touched him. He was wrong. I ignored the heat and locked my grip onto his wrist like a vice. Then, I twisted. Crack. Chu-chan let out a blood-curdling scream. The audience stood frozen, their mouths hanging open. In just a few moves, the genius was pinned. But something even stranger was happening. Chu Chun was in pain, but he wasn't pulling away. He looked terrified. He felt his flame wolf's heat draining away, like water pouring through a broken dam. Inside my own body, I could see my flame python coiling with excitement. It opened its mouth and began swallowing red threads of energy. It was growing larger, while Chu Chin's wolf soul began to wither and tremble. This is incredible, I thought, exhaling slowly. My python can actually devour the energy of other fire-type souls. I resisted the urge to drain him completely and shoved his wrist away. Chu Chin's soul scrambled back into his body, terrified. Chu Chun, I guess that lesson wasn't enough, I said coldly. You trash, he roared, his 9th-stage cultivation fully exploding. You think a mutation makes you special? I was just careless. Now, I'll show you my full power. He threw a palm strike, his energy exploding in the center of the field. It was a blow with 9,000 pounds of force. Bring it, I muttered. I retracted my martial soul. I wanted to test my raw strength. I pulled back my fist. Even though I was only at the 6th stage, the dragon script had tempered my body beyond human limits. My fist carried 10,000 pounds of force. Just as our attacks were about to collide, a thunderous voice boomed from the high platform. Enough! Stop! Chu Changxing shouted. We were both new to the path of cultivation. Once a move is thrown, it's hard to pull back. Neither of us wanted to stop anyway. If those strikes landed, one of us was going to be seriously injured. Chu Changxing saw the danger. He flicked his hand, sending a massive wave of energy between us. The force slammed into both of us, throwing us apart. Dust filled the air. Chu Chun was hunched over, gasping for breath. Even though the strike wasn't aimed at him, the shockwave was almost more than his 9th-stage body could handle. When the dust cleared, Chu Chin's eyes widened in disbelief. He had been blown back 7 steps. I was standing not far away, my arms crossed, looking at him with a smirk. I had only been pushed back 3 steps. My physical body had simply absorbed the impact. The difference was clear to everyone. Suddenly, slow clapping broke the silence. Chu Xingyao was looking at me with genuine admiration. One of you has a 5th-grade soul, and the other has regained a mutated 1st-grade soul after losing a 7th-grade one, he said. This is a blessing for the Chu family. But young men shouldn't be too hot-headed. A blade that is too rigid is easily broken. I hope you all continue to work hard and contribute to the Chu family, Chu Xingyao said, his voice echoing across the arena. Thank you for your guidance, senior, I replied respectfully. I glanced at Chu Chun, who was still standing there in a daze, unable to process what had just happened. I didn't say another word. I simply turned around and walked off the stage, ready to leave this place behind. Chu Xian, you wait for 3 months. Chu Chin's voice exploded behind me, raw with fury. At the family competition, I'm going to beat you so hard your own parents won't recognize you. A loser is always a loser. You're just like your dead father. I stopped in my tracks. I turned back to look at his trembling, enraged face. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just raised both my hands, curled them into fists, and slowly pointed my thumbs toward the ground. That simple gesture snapped his last thread of sanity. Chu Chun let out a guttural roar and charged, intent on killing me right there. But before he could reach the edge of the stage, Chu Changxing stepped in and grabbed him. It wasn't that Chu Changxing wanted to save me. He wanted me dead more than anyone. But with the main family representative, Chu Xingyao, watching, he had to play the part of a dignified leader. He needed to make a good impression so Chu Xingyao would speak well of him to the clan head in the capital. If he could solidify his position as the true branch leader, he knew I'd be easy to deal with later. In his mind, I was already a dead man walking, destined to follow my father to the grave. The awakening ceremony continued, but the excitement had peaked. Only one other boy, Chu Lu, managed to awaken a 4th-grade frost giant wolf soul. After that, Chu Xingyao gathered his things and departed for the capital to report the results. The crowd dispersed, and the martial arts field finally fell silent. Meanwhile, in a private training room, the sound of heavy impacts filled the air. Boom, boom, boom. Chu Chun was losing his mind, his fist smashing into a reinforced training puppet with enough force to make the walls vibrate. A fifth-grade flame wolf soul. My son is truly extraordinary. A deep, commanding voice spoke from the shadows. Chu Chen stopped, his chest heaving as he pulled back his energy. He looked at the man entering the room with wide, excited eyes. Father, you finished your seclusion? Did you succeed? Chu Changhe walked forward, his face glowing with vitality, his blood energy radiating like a hot furnace. Naturally, I have reached the 9th stage of the blood chi realm. In this town, no one is my match anymore. But you look miserable. Tell me, what happened today? Chu Chen's face darkened instantly. It's that waste, Chu Xian. He's still obsessed with Schwanger, and today he actually awakened a first-grade mutated flame python soul. I tried to crush his spirit, but I almost lost to him. Father, if the capital hears about his mutation, our secret might come out. If they find out what we did to his father. What? How could that little animal be so lucky? Chu Changhe's eyes bulged with rage. He lashed out with a casual palm strike, and the training puppet disintegrated into fine ash. The floor beneath it was peppered with tiny craters from the sheer pressure. Father, the family competition in 3 months is our best chance, Chu Chen hissed, his eyes gleaming like a hungry wolf. I'll kill him on the stage and wipe him out for good. Good idea, Chu Changhe nodded. The top 3 get a blood chi pill to help break through to the next realm. You'll take the prize and remove the threat in one stroke. He flipped his hand, and an exquisite wooden box appeared. A thick, medicinal fragrance filled the room, tinged with a faint scent of iron. Inside lay a crimson pill glowing with a bloody light. This is a blood chi pill I took from Chu Tang years ago. I've been saving it for you. Take it. I will help you refine it to push your power even higher. Back in my drafty straw hut, I sat cross-legged on the floor. My blood was roaring through my veins like a flood, and the spiritual energy in the air formed a small vortex above my head, pouring into me. I opened my eyes and sighed. The ambient energy here was too thin. I needed chi-gathering pills to progress, but I couldn't even afford basic healing powder, let alone expensive pills. My only hope was to find a natural spirit vein. If I didn't increase my speed, the competition in 3 months would be my execution. I have no choice. I have to use it, I whispered. I stood up and walked to the lonely mound of dirt that served as my father's grave. My father, Chu Tang, was actually alive and had left this place, but I had to keep up the appearance that he was buried here. If the vultures in the family saw me digging around, they'd know something was up. Chu Xian, you seem pretty relaxed for someone facing death. I froze. The voice came from behind me. It was Zhao Schwanger. I hadn't even started digging yet, thank God. Hey, my junior sister is talking to you, a man shouted. It was a senior disciple from the Frost Hall sect who had come with her. When I didn't respond and kept piling dirt on the grave, he frowned and waved his hand. A gust of wind swept past, blowing the fresh soil off the grave and cracking the headstone. Rage flared in my chest. My energy surged. I was ready to kill him right there. Senior brother Ihan, forget it, Zhao Schwanger said coldly. She looked at me with pity. Chu Xian, I don't care that you awakened a mutated soul. A first-grade soul is still trash compared to the world outside this town. You're still a waste, Zhao Schwanger said, her voice cutting through the cold night air. A person abandoned by heaven. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. She told me that since my father was gone, no one was left to protect me. In her eyes, I was already a dead man, destined to be erased from this world. She claimed Chu Chun would be the one to kill me at the family competition, but then her eyes narrowed. But your life belongs to me, she hissed. Before I kill you, you had better stay alive and well. Ihan, the senior brother beside her, stepped forward to strike, but she stopped him with a wave of her hand. She reached into her sleeve and pulled out a warm jade bottle. She tossed it at my feet like she was throwing a bone to a stray dog. A faint medicinal scent mixed with a hint of blood drifted into my nose. I knew that smell. It was a chi blood pill. Even a basic one cost over 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. For someone in my position, this was a godsend, but the price was my dignity. If you're going to be a stepping stone, have the decency to act like one, she sneered. She told me this pill was a masterpiece from her family's grand alchemist, far stronger than anything I had ever seen. She mocked me, reminding me that I was no longer the young master of the Chu family or a genius in the spotlight. She wanted me to take the pill and get stronger, only so that killing me later would be more fun. I looked at her, and the last lingering spark of affection I had for the girl I once knew vanished. She wasn't that person anymore. She was a monster who would do anything to get ahead. I didn't say a word. I simply raised my foot and brought it down hard. The jade bottle shattered. The precious chi blood pill was crushed into a fine powder under my boot. A light breeze caught the remains, scattering them into the dirt. Zhao Shuang'er stared at the ground, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You don't need to worry about me," I said, a confident smile spreading across my face. "Chu Chun is nothing but a jumping clown. And you? You aren't much better, my dear ex-fiancé." Ihan exploded. He had been infatuated with Zhao Shuang'er since she joined the Frost Hall sect. In his mind, I should have been groveling in gratitude for her charity. Instead, I had insulted her and destroyed the gift. "You're looking for death," Ihan roared. His chi erupted, covering his body in a chilling frost. He was at the 9th level of the Xiantian realm, 3 full stages above me. To him, I was a bug to be crushed. He lunged forward, throwing a punch that manifested into a massive, snow-white frost wolf. The beast howled, surging toward me with overwhelming power. I braced myself. I hadn't yet tested my true limits since awakening my soul. I knew I had the strength of 10,000 pounds, and this was the perfect chance to see what I could really do. I called out to the mutated flame python resting in my dantian. My chi boiled. Crimson scales began to ripple across my arms and legs, forming a suit of burning armor. I planted my feet, twisted my waist, and threw a punch directly into the wolf's maw. A massive explosion rocked the clearing. Dust and debris flew everywhere, obscuring the red glow of my scales. Ihan pulled back, casually dusting off his hands as if he had just touched something filthy. "Senior brother Ihan, you shouldn't have hit him so hard," Zhao Shuang'er said, her voice sounding sweet and manipulative. "He's the key to my cultivation. If you killed him, it would be a waste." Ihan smiled, trying to impress her. "Don't worry, junior sister. If he couldn't even handle one casual punch, he wasn't fit to be your stepping stone anyway. When we get back to the sect, I'll ask my father to give you the Frost Decree instead. It's much better than anything this waste could offer." "Who are you calling a waste?" The dust cleared. I stood there, hands behind my back, looking at Ihan with a calm, bored expression. The red light of my scales flickered in the darkness like an eternal flame. Ihan's jaw dropped. How? How is that possible?" Zhao Shuang'er wasn't as shocked. She had seen me almost take down Chu Chen earlier that day. She knew I could handle a casual strike. Her earlier act of worry was just a way to manipulate Ihan into giving her more resources. "Dog, come and meet your death," I warned. My red light flared brighter, shooting up toward the sky like a crimson rainbow. I charged. I didn't care about the gap in our levels. I wanted blood. Ihan panicked. He didn't expect me to have any fight left in him, let alone this much speed. Zhao Shuang'er watched us like she was at a theater, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. She couldn't understand what drove me to challenge a superior opponent. Inside my dantian, the flame python hissed, its tiny eyes glowing with predatory hunger. My aura surged, matching Ihan's 9th level pressure. I swung my fist at Ihan's face. Just as it was about to connect, a chilling howl filled the air. A second frost wolf materialized in front of him, taking the blow for him. Before I could retract my arm, the wolf lunged and sank its teeth deep into my forearm. "Senior brother is truly impressive," Zhao Shuang'er called out, her voice loud and clear, taking the initiative after a counterattack. "Brilliant." Ihan beamed at the praise. He looked at me, his eyes no longer filled with just rage, but a cruel sort of joy. I was the tool he needed to win her favor. "You're lucky, kid," Ihan sneered, leaping into the air. His fists came down like heavy hammers. "I'll give you a lesson you'll never forget. I'll cripple one of your arms within 10 moves." I wiped a drop of blood from my lip and grinned. "And if you can't?" "That's impossible," he screamed. I didn't blink. I was just getting started. I watched the heavy blow coming toward me, a mountain of force I knew I couldn't meet head-on. I bent my waist low, lunged backward, and leaped several yards away to safety. Immediately, I launched my counterattack. Ihan wasn't just a blowhard. He was a true genius of the Guanghan sect. His movements were fluid, shifting from offense to defense without a wasted breath. When his strike missed, he used the momentum to charge right back at me. He unleashed a barrage of attacks, trying to use his superior 9th-level chi to overwhelm me with raw volume. The pressure was like standing against a relentless tide. I felt the strain. Even though my physical body was toughened by the 9 transformations divine dragon script, I was still only at the 6th level. My energy reserves were lower. If I stayed on the defensive, he would eventually grind me down until I had nothing left to give. I saw right through his plan. He wanted a war of attrition. I shifted my movement, becoming like a ghost, slippery and unpredictable. I channeled the fluid agility of the flame python, weaving through his strikes so he couldn't land a single solid hit. For a famous genius like Ihan, failing to crush a nobody 3 levels below him was a public humiliation. I could see his face turning red with frustration. It felt like I was slapping him across the mouth with every dodge. "Hey," I mocked him while we traded blows. "Didn't you say you'd cripple my arm in 10 moves? What happened?" He was a young master who had been coddled his whole life. He didn't have the mental grit I had forged through 3 years of suffering and ridicule. My taunts worked. Ihan lost his cool, abandoning his steady rhythm for a desperate, heavy strike. In a high-level fight, victory is decided in a heartbeat. I saw the opening in his messy form and charged straight at him. I didn't even try to block. I let him hit me. Ihan's eyes lit up. He thought I had run out of energy and was making a suicidal last stand. Even Zhao Shuang'er shook her head in the distance, looking disappointed. Thud. Ihan's palm slammed into my shoulder. A triumphant smile started to spread across his face, probably imagining Zhao Shuang'er cheering for his victory. But his smile died instantly. I took the hit and didn't flinch. Instead, I swung my fist like a divine hammer, packing every ounce of my killing intent into his abdomen. I hit him with 10,000 pounds of raw physical force, a strength usually reserved for the blood realm. Ihan flew backward through the air. He crashed into the dirt, his internal organs twisted into a knot from the impact. He couldn't stop himself from vomiting a thick spray of blood. I didn't give him a second to breathe. I stepped forward and ground my boot into his hand. The sound of snapping bones echoed across the clearing. I looked down at him, my voice cold. "A top disciple? You're nothing special. You dare." Ihan choked out, nearly fainting from the pain and the shame. I knew that my smiling face would haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. Victory was mine. I knew then that the upcoming family competition wouldn't even be a challenge. Zhao Shuang'er finally moved. She hurried over, fed Ihan a medicinal pill, and helped him up. I just sneered at them. "I'll be waiting for you to come for my head." I watched them disappear into the distance. Once they were gone, I finally let out a breath and felt the copper taste of blood in my throat. I had been suppressing my own injuries the whole time. I wasn't strong enough yet. I needed to go further. I returned to my small hut and sat in silence, circulating my chi to heal. The flame python inside me grew restless, greedily sucking in the natural energy of the world. Time lost its meaning. 3 months passed in a flash. I traveled to different remote spots, absorbing endless energy until I finally broke through to the 7th level of the prenatal realm. I tested my strength by punching a massive boulder. Boom! The rock shattered, and the force drove the fragments deep into the earth. I looked at my pale, vibrating fist with a satisfied grin. That single punch carried 17,000 pounds of force. I was now as strong as a second-layer Blood Realm warrior. The 9 transformations divine dragon script is truly terrifying, I whispered to myself. Today was the day of the Chu family competition. I made myself a quick meal and looked toward the Grand Chu estate, a place that belonged to me by birthright, but was currently occupied by snakes and traitors. My eyes burned with a sharp light. "Chu-chun, I hope you've reached the Blood Realm," I muttered. "I'd hate to kill you with just one punch." I left my hut and headed toward the arena. When I arrived, the atmosphere was electric. The crowd was cheering as the losers were cleared from the stage. "Next match, Chu Xian versus Chu Jinglei," an elder shouted. The crowd gasped. My name was on everyone's lips. I was the biggest mystery of the competition, the former genius who lost his soul, only to awaken a rare, mutated one. People weren't just curious about my talent. They were waiting to see if I would fail and lose everything again, just like 3 years ago. Today, I, Chu Jinglei, will teach this heaven-sent talent a lesson, a voice roared. Chu Jinglei blurred across the ground and leaped onto the 10-story-high stage, landing without making a single sound. The crowd cheered at his display of lightness and control. He stood in the center of the ring, arrogant and proud, looking around the crowd for his opponent. But he was looking in the wrong place. I wasn't there yet. I was currently walking through the busy streets of Panshan Town, a black broken sword hanging at my waist. I used the last of my money to buy a decent set of clothes. If I was going to dominate the Chu family, I was going to look the part. Back at the arena, Chu Jinglei was growing impatient. He had been waiting to bully a waste, and my absence was making him look foolish. Down in the front row, Chu Chun watched with a cold, mocking smile. 3 months had passed, and Chu Chun looked like a completely different man, stronger, colder, and ready for blood. 3 months ago, Chu Chun was only at the 9th stage of the Qi refinement realm. Now, backed by the full resources of the Chu family, he had broken through to the blood transformation realm. He wasn't at the peak of the 1st level yet, but against anyone below his realm, he was an unstoppable force. He sat in the front row, a smug, mocking smile spreading across his face. He figured I had finally realized I was going to die and decided that running away was my only option. He felt superior. The family had spent a fortune to help him reach this level. To him, I was just a fallen disciple, a heaven-cursed loser with 0 chance of winning. He even thought that if I did show up, one move would be enough to end me. The Chu family competition wasn't just a local event. The major clans of Panshan Town and even representatives from the surrounding sects were watching, looking for new talent to recruit. I, however, had no idea I had messed up the start time. I was still wandering the streets at a snail's pace. Back at the arena, the incense stick used for timing was almost gone. The crowd started whispering. They called me a coward and said I had disgraced my father's name. Chu Jinglei paced the stage, bored. He watched the last bit of the incense glow, ready to be declared the winner by default. I announced that this match, the referee began. Wait, I'm here. My voice cut through the air. I stood at the entrance of the arena with a confident smile. The crowd erupted. They couldn't believe I actually showed up. To them, I was walking to my death. Chu Jinglei was a top-tier talent in the younger generation. He wasn't on Chu Chen's level, but he was at the peak of the 9th stage. A single strike from him carried nearly 10,000 pounds of force. Against my 7th stage cultivation, it looked like a massacre waiting to happen. So, you actually dared to come. Chu Jinglei laughed, his voice dripping with arrogance. You think arriving at the last second makes you some kind of legendary genius? If you can even make me move half a step from where I'm standing, I'll count it as my loss. I didn't say a word. I walked toward the stage and leaped up, landing perfectly. My broken black sword was still sheathed, but as I moved it behind my back, a stray bit of sword qi leaked out, carving a visible gash into the hard floor. If you can force me to take one step back, I countered, I'll be the one to admit defeat. The crowd went wild with derision. They thought I was delusional. Chu Jinglei turned red with rage. He called me a fool who knew nothing of the martial path. You talk too much, I said, stroking the hilt of my broken blade. Get out of the ring. I don't want to kill anyone today. Being ignored by a trash like me was the ultimate insult. Chu Jinglei roared like a wild beast and charged. His speed was impressive, and that fist coming at my face definitely had 10,000 pounds of power behind it. For a normal 9th stage fighter, he was elite. But I wasn't normal. The 9 Transformations Divine Dragon script had remade me. As his massive fist closed in, I didn't panic. I simply tilted my head. The punch whistled past my ear, hitting nothing but air. The audience gasped. They thought it was a fluke. Even the elders in the high seats assumed I just got lucky. Luck won't save you twice. Chu Jinglei screamed. He drew his longsword. In an instant, the stage was covered in a web of flashing steel. He lunged and slashed, his movements blurring. I danced through the gaps in his strikes. No matter how fast he swung, I stayed within a tiny circle of space, shifting just enough to let the blade pass. The observers were stunned. They could sense my cultivation clearly. I was only at the 7th stage, barely touching the 8th. A normal 7th-stage disciple would have been shredded in seconds. Yet, I had dodged 20 moves without him even touching a single hair on my head. "Stop hiding like a turtle," Chu Jinglei barked, his face flushed with shame. "Fight me head-on." The crowd joined in, booing and demanding I stop running. They didn't realize I was just testing my new reflexes. "Raging sunburn," Chu Jinglei roared. The temperature on the stage skyrocketed. His third-grade sunsword soul erupted with power, making the air ripple with heat. This was his finishing move, a massive, wide-range attack that left no room to dodge. Everyone thought it was over. That's when I finally moved. I opened my eyes wide, and the world slowed down. I raised my right hand. A brilliant burst of sword light exploded behind me, slicing through the air like a bolt of lightning connecting heaven and earth. The sharp, chilling aura instantly shredded the sweltering heat on the stage. My fingers closed around the hilt of my broken sword. I swung. The world seemed to shake with the sound of wind and thunder. Chu Jinglei's raging sun attack, which looked so unstoppable a moment ago, was cut clean in half like a block of soft tofu. My sword chi didn't stop there. It surged forward like a tidal wave, relentless and overwhelming. Chu Jinglei didn't stand a chance. The strike sent him flying, blood spraying from his chest. It was just one move. Actually, it wasn't even a proper technique. It was just a plain, simple swing. Yet, it had completely stripped him of his ability to fight. "This is your strength?" I asked, looking down at him. "The great 9th stage of the Xiantian realm?" I didn't wait for an answer. I stepped forward and slammed my boot into his face. His nose shattered. 2 front teeth flew out and lodged in his throat, leaving him making a pathetic, gurgling sound. If I hadn't held back, he'd be a corpse right now. Before the crowd could even blink, I kicked him again. He flew off the stage like a discarded stone, slamming into the stone wall with a sickening thud. He left a human-shaped crater in the masonry and slumped to the ground, motionless. "Waste," I spat, not even glancing at his broken body. "You're not worthy of a sword." Chu Jinglei heard his own favorite insult thrown back at him. The humiliation was too much. He coughed up a mouthful of dark blood, his eyes rolled back, and he passed out cold. The arena went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Nobody expected a total massacre. "Elder," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet. "Announce the result." The referee snapped out of his trance. I announced Chu Xian as the winner. The crowd erupted. They had just watched a top 10 favorite get crushed without effort. A few young disciples started chanting my name. Soon, the whole stadium was roaring. They looked at me like I was a god. I hopped off the stage and found a seat. The kid sitting next to me, a 5th-stage disciple, looked like he was about to faint from excitement just being near me. The rest of the first round was boring. Most fights were desperate struggles, even when one fighter was clearly stronger. Nobody else won with the ease I did. By the time the elimination round ended, only 12 of us were left. We were given an hour to recover. With the help of the clan elders and some pills, everyone was back to their peak form quickly. The second round began. Fights passed by in a blur until the referee finally called the match everyone was waiting for. 6th match, Chu Xian versus Chu Chun. The atmosphere hit a fever pitch. This was the legendary 3-month bet. The former genius against the current one. "Chu Chun will win for sure," someone in the stand shouted. "Chu Xian is cursed by the heavens. If he wins, I'll eat the chair I'm sitting on." "Don't be so sure," another whispered. "Did you see what he did to Chu Jinglei? He might be hiding something." Chu Chun walked onto the stage with an arrogant, graceful air. He had that smug, evil smirk that made all the local girls scream his name. I followed him up but stayed silent, my mind focused. Suddenly, Chu Chun shook his arms. A massive wave of energy exploded from his body. His blood chi roared through his veins like muffled thunder. "Blood chi realm," someone screamed. The crowd went wild. In just 3 months, Chu Chun had broken through the Xiantian realm. He was now a blood chi expert, the youngest in the history of Panshan Town. It meant he didn't even need the prize pills anymore. He was only here to humiliate me. His father, Chu Changsheng, sat in the high seats, beaming with pride. Chu Chen stood with his hands behind his back, looking down his nose at me. I'll admit, you're impressive. Beating a 9th stage Xiantian while you're only at the 7th is a feat, but it ends here. He took a step forward, his aura pressing down on me. I'm in the blood chi realm now. I'm the strongest genius this town has ever seen. Do yourself a favor and crawl off this stage before you get hurt. I just broke through, so I don't really know my own strength yet. I'd hate to accidentally kill you with one punch. I didn't back down. I couldn't guarantee I wouldn't kill him with a single punch either. Chu Chen's words were dripping with arrogance and pure disdain. He looked at me like I was a bug he could crush at any moment. My heart raced, but not from fear. It was anticipation. On the surface, Chu Chen was miles ahead of the strength I'd just shown. But his condescending attitude only fueled my desire to teach him a lesson. So what if he was in the blood chi realm? If he wanted a fight, I'd give him one. I stayed silent, focusing every ounce of my energy into a single point. Not talking. Chu Chen sneered. I'll take that as a silent agreement. He turned toward the elder acting as the referee. Elder, I don't think we even need to fight to know the winner. You know the gap between the Xiantian and blood chi realms better than anyone. He thought he had me intimidated. He looked down on me even more, a cold smirk playing on his lips. He wanted the elder to just declare him the winner right then and there. Since Chu Chen has reached the blood chi realm, the elder began, looking toward me for any sign of protest. Seeing none, he took a breath. I hereby announce. Wait. I finally spoke. The elder stopped mid-sentence. What's so special about the blood chi realm? It's just a level built on a pile of expensive pills and herbs. Today, I'm going to find out exactly how much water is hiding in your supposed strength. I stared Chu Chen down. I didn't hide my battle intent. I let him feel the deep mockery in my voice. The referee, elder, frowned. Chu Xian, do you have any idea how big the gap is? You're only at the 7th stage of Xiantian. Even if you were at the peak of the 9th stage, you wouldn't stand a chance against a blood chi expert. I could tell the elder didn't like me, but he wasn't as cold-blooded as Chu Chen and his father. He didn't want to see a promising talent get slaughtered. He was trying to warn me, but my mind was made up. Elder, you don't need to say another word, I interrupted. I accept this fight. Life or death, it doesn't matter. The elder's face went dark. He thought I was being reckless and ungrateful. He'd tried to throw me a lifeline, and I'd thrown it back in his face. He huffed, stepped back, and fell silent. Fine, Chu Xian, Chu Chen laughed. Since you're so eager to die, let's make this interesting. Fighting with empty hands is boring. Let's raise the stakes. Unless you're too afraid to lose. I shook my head slowly. I'm just worried you can't afford the price. Me? Afraid of a failure like you? Chu Chen roared. If I win, you leave the Chu family immediately. You leave Panshan Town and never show your face here again. Not in this life, not ever. If I lose, I'll give you 3 blood chi pills to help you break through. Do you dare to bet? A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was a death sentence. If I lost and left the family, I'd have no protection. The Chu family could hunt me down and kill me without breaking a single rule. Everyone saw it for what it was, a trap with 0 chance of me winning. I stayed silent again. Chu Chen held his head high, waiting for my answer. The stands were buzzing. People were calling me a dead man. They said I'd have nothing left if I lost my family name. Even if I didn't take the bet, I'd already offended the strongest genius in town. Are you scared? Chu Chen taunted. His blood chi was surging now, every movement carrying the force of 10,000 pounds. Maybe if you kneel and beg, I'll spare your life. I let out a cold laugh. That bet is too small. Why don't we put your father's position as clan leader on the line? Chu Changsheng has sat in that chair for 3 years. It's time he moved. My words hit the crowd like a sledgehammer. No one expected me to say that in front of the entire town, the major sects, and the representatives from the main family. I was slapping Chu Chen and his father across the face in public. People thought I'd gone completely insane. They figured I was just using my last moments to insult my enemies before I died. The crowd grew even more frantic, some even egging Chu Chen on to take the deal. Chu Chen hesitated. He wanted to agree, but he didn't have the authority to gamble his father's title. But before he could speak, a voice boomed from the high seats. You arrogant little brat. We accept your bet. It was Chu Changsheng. The crowd exploded. What started as a simple family competition had turned into a gamble that could change the fate of the entire town. If the clan leader changed, everything would change. Chu Chun was stunned for a second, then he grinned. He was confident. He knew his own power, and he knew I was just a 7th-stage Xiantian. To him, this was an easy win. Chu Changxing looked down at me with pure venom. Chu Xian, you're young, and you clearly don't know how the world works. As your elder, let me remind you, know your place. If you're too arrogant, you'll die early. Don't forget, it was your father's own arrogance that got the family elites killed and led to his own death. My blood boiled. You have no right to speak about my father. Don't forget, I said, my voice cutting through the noise of the crowd. I am the true heir of the Chu family main line in Panshan Town. You're nothing but a branch member. If you hadn't played your dirty tricks, you'd never be sitting in that leader's chair. Who are you to lecture me? I let out a cold laugh, staring directly into Chu Changxing's eyes. I didn't show him an ounce of respect. 3 years ago, he stole what belonged to me. Now I was back to take it all back. You're looking for death, Chu Chen roared. He was furious that I was ignoring him to talk to his father. To him, it felt like I was treating him as an inferior. He glared at me, his eyes twitching as he probably imagined which of my limbs he wanted to break first. I didn't say a word. I let my energy surge. Behind me, the massive, deep red flame python began to manifest. Its cold, slit-like eyes locked onto Chu Chun, its scarlet tongue flickering in the air. Waves of invisible heat radiated from my body, so intense that the stone floor beneath my feet felt like it was about to melt. Is he really just in the Xiantian realm? Someone gasped from the stands. The sheer pressure I was putting off stunned everyone. Even Chu Changxing's cold, dead eyes finally showed a flicker of emotion. The crowd began to murmur in shock. Even Chu Xingyao, the representative from the main family who had been sitting as still as a statue, sat up a little straighter. I saw a hint of approval flash in his eyes. Cheap tricks, Chu Chen spat. He couldn't stand that I was stealing his spotlight. He prided himself on being the town's top genius. He let his own energy explode, covering his body in a thick layer of power. Even though he was sure I wasn't his match, his father had taught him never to hold back, even against a weak opponent. He wasn't just looking to win. He was looking to kill me right here. A massive, vicious wolf spirit appeared behind him, howling at the sky. The heat on the stage intensified. The nearby flags caught fire from the sheer temperature. On paper, based on the strength of our awakened souls, Chu Chun looked like he would easily crush me. I just smiled. I didn't feel the heat at all. In fact, I enjoyed it. I could feel the flame python inside me greedily swallowing the heat from the air and pumping that power back into my veins. I decided to strike first. I drew my broken sword, a blade that hadn't left its scabbard in 3 years. It caught the light as I lunged straight for Chu Chen's face. I knew I couldn't afford to be careless against someone a full realm higher than me. I had to take the initiative. If I let this turn into a battle of endurance, my energy would run out long before his, and I'd be at his mercy. The sword sang as it cleared the scabbard. Haha, he actually drew that broken thing. Someone laughed from the crowd. Does he really think that piece of scrap metal can stand up to Chu Chen's fists? Don't be so sure, another voice countered. Look at the mark he left when he fought Chu Jinglei. That scrap might have been a divine weapon once. Divine weapon? Please. It's trash. It'll shatter the moment they clash. I ignored the chatter. My broken black sword moved with a singular, unstoppable momentum. Chu Chen's eyes narrowed. He didn't dare take it head-on. He surged his energy, forming an invisible shield around himself. He felt it too, the feeling that he wasn't facing a broken tip, but a legendary blade. He knew my first soul had been a high-grade sword soul, and he wasn't willing to gamble his life on a guess. White clouds from the sleeve. I whispered. My wrist flicked, and the sword danced. Red energy coated the blade, but strangely, it gave off a chilling frost. 9 sword shadows appeared before Chu Chun like sudden clouds. 8 were fakes, but I could turn any one of them into a lethal strike the moment he tried to block. Chu Chun grinned. He'd seen these kinds of feints before. His fists blurred, moving so fast it looked like he had 8 arms. He intended to smash every single cloud at once. Clang. The sound of metal hitting metal echoed across the plaza. With his energy reinforcement, Chu Chen's fists were like iron pillars. Because I had to split my focus between the 9 shadows, my initial momentum slowed. Chu Chen didn't give me a second to breathe. He swung both fists toward my temples in a vicious, double wind strike. It was a kill shot. If those fists connected, my head would be crushed like a melon. But I wasn't the weakling he thought I was. My physical body was already as strong as a second-stage blood-chi cultivator. I muttered. I shifted my feet, moving like a snake gliding across the stage. I slipped past his escapable strike with ease. 13 swords of the soaring cloud. I warred. I had spent 3 years honing this blade for this exact moment. The broken sword suddenly felt whole in my hand. 13 brilliant sword flowers bloomed simultaneously, targeting 13 of Chu Chen's vital points at once. Chu Chen realized he couldn't dodge them all. He made a split-second decision. He ignored the defense and threw everything into a counterattack. Fire energy exploded from his hands, warping the very air around us. As he charged in, a smirk crossed my face. He'd fallen for it. The moment he got close, the energy swirling around me condensed into the massive flame python. It lunged, wrapping its coils around Chu Chen's arms and body in a split second. Boom! Chu Chen's fist stopped exactly 1 inch from my heart. The shockwave of his punch blew my long black hair back and rattled my clothes. But he couldn't move another inch. The crowd went dead silent. Then, a scream erupted from the stands. Soul manifestation? He separated his soul from his body. How does he have the strength to do that? The crowd exploded. I could hear the gasps and screams echoing across the arena. Soul manifestation. He separated his soul from his body. If he fails this strike, his body will be left completely defenseless. Does he really think he can take on a blood-chi expert with just his physical strength? I didn't care what they thought. I watched my flame python coil around Chu Chen, its fiery scales glowing with a predatory light. At this close range, the python's devouring ability was at full throttle. It began to frantically drain the soul energy right out of Chu Chen's flame wolf. Chu Chen's face went pale. I could see the strength leaving his limbs. The weakness of his soul was reflecting on his physical body, making his movements sluggish and heavy. My flame python flicked its crimson tongue, pulling the red fire energy into its gullet. Chu Chen knew he was in trouble. If I kept this up, I wouldn't just beat him. I would drain his soul dry, leaving him a useless cripple for the rest of his life. Part of me wanted to kill him right there on the platform. My blood boiled with the memory of everything he and his father had stolen. But I forced myself to stay calm. We were in public. If I showed too much power or used a technique that looked too demonic, someone would notice. The 9 Transformations Divine Dragon script was a treasure that even ancient, hidden monsters would kill for. I couldn't risk exposing it yet. What kind of evil art is this? Chu Chen gasped. Why, no. He tried to struggle, but he couldn't find a spark of strength. Before he could finish his sentence, I moved. My broken sword flashed through the air. I swung with a clean, decisive strike. The blade sliced through his defenses like they weren't even there. I carved a bloody gash right across his abdomen. The sheer force of my physical strength sent him flying. He didn't just fall. He was launched off the stage, crashing into the dirt far below. It was over. Chu Chen lay crumpled in the corner, a bloody, shivering mess. He was alive. The natural healing of a blood-chi cultivator would save him, but his pride was shattered. So much for the legendary blood-chi stage. I spat. I hopped down from the stage without giving him a second glance. My eyes locked onto his father, Chu Changsheng. Chu Changsheng, it's time to return what you stole. You went too far. Chu Changsheng roared, his face turning a deep purple. You're ruthless to your kin and disrespectful to your elders. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your dead father. He was losing it. The bet we made earlier was eating him alive, and seeing his son defeated was the final straw. He didn't just step forward, Ta attacked. A massive, glowing palm print formed in the air, descending toward me with a crushing, murderous pressure. He wanted me dead. I felt the aura of destruction closing in. My battle intent flared. Chu Changsheng, are you trying to back out of our bet? I raised my broken sword. I didn't retreat. I poured everything I had into one final, desperate strike. Sort of no regret. My sword light collided with his massive palm print. For a split second, I actually held my ground. But the gap in our cultivation was too wide. My sword energy shattered. Chu Changsheng grunted and added more power to his strike, intending to grind me into the dust. Boom. Just as the pressure was about to crush my bones, another palm print shot through the air, intercepting Chu Changsheng's attack and blowing it to pieces. Chu Changsheng. A calm voice drifted over the field. It was Chu Xingyao, the representative from the main family. The struggle for the head of the house is one thing, but you shouldn't interfere in a fight between juniors. I exhaled, my lungs burning. Chu Xingyao had stepped in. I knew he would. He had seen my talent, and he wasn't about to let a local branch leader kill a potential genius right in front of him. Plus, letting Chu Changsheng kill me would have made Chu Xingyao look weak. Chu Changsheng's heart sank. He didn't dare talk back to someone from the main family. He stood there, fuming, with a look that said he wanted to swallow me whole, but he had no choice but to back down. The family servants rushed onto the field and carried the broken Chu Qin away to the healing hall. The matches for the day were over, but my name was the only thing anyone was talking about. Chu Xian is terrifying. He really is Chu Tang's son. Did you see that? His sword actually held up against a strike from the branch leader for a moment. He's only at the 7th layer of the Qi gathering stage, but his sword intent is already that sharp? Unbelievable. I wiped a trail of blood from the corner of my mouth. I was injured internally, but I forced a cold smile. This was exactly what I wanted. By showing off my talent, I had turned Chu Xingyao into my shield. The rest of the matches were a blur. Nobody cared about the other fighters anymore. I was injured, but I pushed through the next 2 rounds with lightning speed. My physical strength was so superior that I ended every fight in a single move. The crowd was convinced. The championship was mine. Chu Changsheng sat in the shadows, his expression becoming more sinister by the minute. He whispered a command to one of his men, his eyes never leaving me. Semifinals, match 1, the elder shouted. Chu Xian versus Chu Xing. There was no break. This was the true test, winning back-to-back while exhausted. I stepped onto the stage, my energy low but my resolve unshaken. My body was tired, but my muscles were still like iron. My opponent, Chu Xing, looked at me and sighed. He bowed deeply, holding his hands in a gesture of respect. Brother Chu Xian, I know I'm no match for you. Even in your weakened state, I don't see a single opening. I forfeit. I nodded to him, respecting his honesty. But as he jumped off the stage, the presiding elder received a message. His face paled instantly. The final match for the championship, the elder announced, his voice trembling slightly. Since the other finalist is unable to compete, the final will begin now. The elders huddled together in a quick, hushed conference. Then, the presiding elder looked up, his voice booming across the arena. The council has decided. Since the other finalist cannot compete, Chu Shan will take his place to fight for the championship. A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. People began shouting in disbelief. Chu Shan was back. He was the younger brother of Chu Xingyun, but more importantly, he had been taken away years ago by the Guanghan Palace. Rumors said he had already become an inner disciple of that legendary sect. 3 years ago, Chu Shan was the only genius in the family who could even stand in my shadow. He had awakened a 6th-grade martial soul. If he hadn't left for the palace, Chu Qin never would have been the top dog here. The crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. They thought my victory was a sure thing, but now, the odds were even again. I looked toward the high seats. Chu Changsheng was wearing a cold, triumphant smirk. He had planned this all along. To protect his power and humiliate me, he had played his final card. He had truly gone all out this time. The sound of a commotion rose from the distance. A young man in white robes approached, fanning himself slowly with a folding fan. He was followed by 2 stunningly beautiful handmaidens. With every step he took, a visible chill radiated from his body. The temperature on the stage plummeted, turning the summer heat into a biting winter. Chu Shan greets the elders and the managers of the Chu family, he said, his voice smooth and full of grace. He bowed to the dignitaries, but he didn't even spare me a single glance. It was as if I didn't exist. An inner disciple of the Guanghan Palace, Chu Xingyao remarked. nodding with genuine interest. A sixth-grade soul is impressive even in the main family. I noticed Chu Xingyao's eyes linger on the two handmaidens. I felt it too. Their aura was heavy and sharp. Both of them were at the 9th level of the Xiantian realm. Finally, Chu Shan turned his head toward me. His gaze was condescending. Chu Xian, it's been 3 years. I didn't expect you to still be this pathetic. You don't even show respect to the elders. You're heading down a dangerous path. I felt a surge of irritation. My blood began to boil. You worry too much, I snapped back. I don't need a reminder from you on how to handle my business. The disciples of the Guanghan Palace were all the same. Arrogant, self-important. How bold, one of the handmaidens shrieked. She stepped forward, her face twisted in rage. A lowly peasant dares to speak to my master like that? Dot. She unsheathed a long sword, the steel flashing as she lunged at me. I didn't even draw my broken blade. I simply flicked my wrist. A burst of sword light erupted from my hand, colliding with her weapon. Her blade snapped in two like a dry twig. The girl gasped, coughing up a mouthful of blood as she was sent flying backward. You're just a servant, I said, my voice cold and steady. And yet you dare to strike at me? I stood in the center of the stage, looking down at her. If you attack me, you'd better be prepared to die. I took a heavy step forward. I didn't wait. I threw a punch through the air, aiming straight for her chest. Chu Xian, you wouldn't dare. Chu Shan screamed. He snapped his fan shut and blurred across the stage, throwing himself in front of his servant to block the blow. Watch me, I warned. I poured the raw, celestial power of the 9 transformations divine dragon script into that single fist. The impact was deafening. Even though Chu Shan absorbed most of the force, the shockwave ripped through him and slammed into the girl behind him. She didn't stand a chance. Blood sprayed from her eyes, nose, and ears. Her internal organs were crushed. She was dead before she hit the ground. The crowd went silent. I had just killed a 9th-level Xiantian expert, as if she were an ant. Wild, domineering, ruthless. That was the new me. You actually killed her? Chu Shan's eyes turned bloodshot. He was trembling with fury. He had sent her out just to humiliate me, to chip away at my confidence. He never imagined I would actually end her life right in front of him.